Mike and Nicole Dowell opened the original Liber Farm tasting room in July 2016. It was 10 years after they first vacationed in British Columbia, completing a dream to change their lifestyle while raising a young family. The original Liber property on the outskirts of Coston was once part of the historic Mariposa Farm, which in the early 1960s was the first farm in British Columbia to be certified organic. We begin in the breathtaking and wild Similkameen Valley at the estate that began it all, just south of Coston, in view of the U.S. border. I wanted to start down by the Similkameen River because a lot of people never even come down here as they drive through, but it's an important part of the terroir here at your vineyard.
Well, it's the lifeline of the Similkameen, hence the name Similkameen Valley, and for us to be right on the river, this close to it, and just to be surrounded by it on this vineyard it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Is there some sort of river effect too, like for your...
Yeah, so what happens, especially in the spring, is this whole embankment here will be covered in water, and then we get those, later in the afternoon sunsets. I remember the first year we were here, and I was walking up from the river, and all of a sudden my back was just like, whoa, that's hot. And I turned around, and of course it was a shimmer effect. So intense heat for, even a short period of time will really invigorate the vines and really help us to kind of get through that first push. And the nice thing too is when that sun does set, this cool river air just comes in and overtakes the vineyard.
So great. So you make a couple Chardonnays that come out of this vineyard here?
Correct. We make our more friendly style, which is kind of more of a stainless steel, neutral oak style Chardonnay. And then we also make a barrel fermented full mallow style Chardonnay.
And you brought one we can taste.
Yes, of course. Yeah, always. Yeah.
Give me the glasses, man.
Here you go. Yeah.
These wines always smell wild to me. They just sort of have a wilder character.
Yeah.
Like it's Chardonnay, but that doesn't smell like a Burgundy.
Got those apple flavors in it as well.
Yeah. It's crisp and clean, but it has a little savoriness.
Yes.
We can see the sagebrush.
Yeah, and then, we're very fortunate. We have such a great terroir for the Chardonnay and just the silt and then the rock that's in the soil that it grows into.
Well, I love, if we look back here, first of all, we can see the mountains. So we know where this rock, I guess, originated from thousands and thousands of years ago. Yeah. But it's amazing what's here. So the vineyard's right above. We're going to go up and look at it. But tell us a little bit about what you're farming on.
I know a lot of people are putting in the soil pits, but we got a soil bluff here, so we're able to see the amount of rock. I always come down here for a little bit of inspiration. Some days on a hard day, just to kind of, just to see this and say, okay, no, this is a great spot what we have here. So
when you originally came to BC, you started here.
Correct.
And you chose this property? Was it?
I think it kind of chose us. We weren't wanting to get into the vineyard business. We were more wanting to do orchards and just try to, do it that way. And then this person that we bought from approached us and said, you should come by me. And we're like, we didn't really want to. It wasn't until we came and did an actual full tour and we tried the Chardonnay that they had made the year before and put in tank. And my wife said, we're buying this place. And
that was it.
That was it. And she doesn't like Chardonnay. Yeah. So that was even more interesting to hear. So
you just don't walk through places like this to get to a vineyard very often, anywhere in the world.
No.
It's great. Having walked the vineyard perimeter, examined the soil profile, and experienced the wind and the influence of the Similkameen River, Mike takes us into the vines to taste the Rebel Chardonnay that tops the Liber Estate's wine labels. It's even a bit of a golden tinge.
Yeah, we like the gold tinge. We don't like the yellow tinge for sure. So, just, definitely you get that oak nose off the top. But,
it's a big wine, eh?
Yeah, once you start tasting it, and the freshness is still there, the acidity is there. I usually don't spit this one, but it's a nice style.
Yeah.
So it's.
But it is linear. Like you expect it's going to just sit down, but it just runs down the palate. That acidity is quite bright.
Not too heavily oaked, which we prefer as well. We don't like those big style with a really, really yellow hue. We like the golden color on it. Big body, big flavors, and ageability on this is. We're not sure yet. We're still quite young, but
I would say 5 to 7, maybe right off the bat.
Yeah.
But it's got lovely freshness too. So it's got that acidity that we want.
Well, acidity in this valley is very common, right?
Yeah, 2 well-made Chardonnays. Could be scaring the Californians. As is often the case in Burgundy, the Coston site is not only home to the Liber Chardonnay vines, it will also be home to the future vintages of Rebel Pinot Noir. The initial Pinot Noir release was made with purchased fruit from a nearby vineyard, but the plan is to produce an estate Pinot once the vines are older. Small bunches of mildew are a common occurrence in Pinot Noir, but as Mike explains, the Similkameen has a very effective method of eliminating mildew, and it's 100% organic. Some people don't realize how small these bunches are, and they're so tight.
Yeah, they call it the baby bunch or the baby fist, right? So if you put your hand like that, that's kind of what they mimic. But for us here in the Similkameen, we get so much wind that mildew is a big problem with bunches like this. But again, with that wind that we get, allows it to be organic capital of Canada because we are able to, get a lot of those disease pressures out of the way.
Other thing that people are sometimes surprised about, like you're growing white Chardonnay grapes and Pinot Noir red grapes in the same vineyard.
Yeah.
I mean, they do that in Burgundy, but sometimes you think, how can they do that? But they seem well adapted here.
It's a good terroir for Chardonnay. We're pretty confident it's going to be a great terroir for the Pinot Noir.
Okay, let's taste it, because these taste mighty good.
No problem.
From the Similkameen, we head east to Osoyoos at the very south end of the Okanagan Valley. It's only a 20-minute drive, but it's a big change in climate, beginning with a much warmer site, less wind, and very different soils. Mike has planted Cabernet Franc around in what is a mini hill by BC standards, less than a half a kilometer from Lake Osoyoos and a mere pitching wedge from the Osoyoos-Oroville Canada-US border crossing.
I really believe Cabernet Franc is going to be kind of the BC grape. It's just, it does very well here. The flavors, we're usually typically able to get really, really ripe on it. Yeah. As opposed to sometimes with the Cab Sav, it takes a little bit longer. Being a thin-skinned grape, I think it really shows a lot of expression year to year, depending on the growing season. It's just a real fun wine to work with.
Well, let's try some of those.
Try here some. You go, yeah.
Thanks. This grape was famous in Bordeaux. A lot of times it was blended away, or you'd see it a lot in Saint-Emilion style wines. But are you doing it in a blend, or are you doing it on its own?
No, we do. Yeah, no, we do single varietal on it for sure. We think it can stand by itself. It has so much flavor in it right from the get-go that your oaking program doesn't have to be the point where you have to leave it in the oak for months and months or years and years.
It's like nice and juicy right in this little berry.
Correct. Yeah, and we're probably another 4 or 5 weeks away from processing this for our red wine. Mm-hmm. Well, it makes
you here all night long chasing the deer off?
Oh, yeah, and the bears.
We brag a bit about this sagebrush or greasewood here in BC. Yeah. Because of the effect. We think that we get this sort of savory garrigue effect in the wine. Do you believe in that? Or
a little bit, yeah. Of course, I think every element around the vineyard is going to give it some sort of expression. Like in our Costa vineyard, we have apples around them, and definitely our Chardonnay. Yeah. A lot of people feel they feel apples here. The sage, you smell it, especially on a Cabernet Franc where the skins are a lot thinner than, say, your Cab Sauvignon or your Merlot even as well. So this was our first vintage, 2020. We took over the vineyard in 2020, so we just released this. This was our first year of making a full vintage with the Cab Franc from this vineyard,
which was a great vintage.
It was, it was we were really warm, really hot, not very many fires, which was nice. And for us, we try to treat it similar to our Pinot Noir with our oak process. We don't over oak it.
And it's nice because, of course, in Napa they're trying to do all this too, but it's so dark. This is quite a red fruited wine. Like, it smells red fruited as well, which is nice.
In 2020 we were able to get fully ripe, so we were at a very, very high brick content when we picked it.
Juicy.
We planted some other varietals in the lower part. Yeah. We got some Cab Sav.
And you got Semillon on
the
other side?
Yeah, and some Sauv Blanc, because we started off making Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon blend, but ran out of grapes. So now we planted our own plots and a little bit of Muscat in there to try to make a true style Bordeaux white that we're pretty excited to start making hopefully in a couple of years.
You need a bench or something here. Yeah. You can just sit up here and drink your wine.
I might put a little bunkhouse and just come here every once in a while and just sleep the night away on a hot night. So
yeah. From the border, it's only a few kilometers north to the new Liber Home Estate Vineyard and a new tasting room located on the east side of the valley along a very busy Highway 97, just minutes from downtown Osoyoos. Dowell pulled out a small orchard to build a mini Bordeaux vineyard at the foot of the Osoyoos West Bench, just south of the Golden Mile Bench. Well, let's talk about the home estate. Now, you've replanted there recently, right behind the tasting room.
Correct, yeah. It's kind of called the Rebel Without a Name estate. We planted some of the bigger reds because it's in the Osoyoos area, so we got Malbec, Petit Verdot, and a nice good acre of Cabernet Sauvignon. Yeah.
For a blend, or will you do them separately? Or?
Everything could turn into a blend, but we got to see what the quality of the fruit is year to year, and then we may do small lots in single varietals, and then definitely I think a blend is something we want to get kind of more into for sure.
It's interesting because, as you mentioned, it looks a bit like a Bordeaux vineyard. It's flatter than maybe normal area, but it's very stony.
Yeah, we got a lot of rock in there. It was an old riverbed that used to come down the mountainside and then drain into what is Lake Osoyoos now. So the soil type and the rock type, I think, is going to do very well for the type of varietals we picked, as well as it gets a ton of sun and a ton of heat. And with the way it's situated in the valley, even when the sun's setting, we still get quite a bit of sunshine on it.
In keeping with the scale of Liber, the tasting room is small, but you have the opportunity to sit in the orchard that borders the recently planted home estate vineyard. There's something reassuring about the pace at Liber. It's an everything in due time attitude and all on a human scale, because that's what attracted the family to the Okanagan in the first place. At the Costin site, we conclude our visit with a talk about the future and a glimpse of the next vineyard at Liber Estates. It's just another challenge for the Dowell family that so far has met each one with modesty and success. Well, Mike, 7 years now under your belt, still committed to organic.
Yeah.
And we're standing in a place that maybe is the most organic of all. What are the plans at Liber going ahead?
Well, this is kind of the last frontier for us. This is our our original organic vineyard, Costin vineyard, and this area is still untouched. And I really think it'd be a really, really great spot for a vineyard. There's a lot of rock to be moved, but down the road they've moved a lot of rock. I know Cabernet, there's a lot of rock, so there's just a lot of rock. It's just something we got to get by.
What would you grow up here?
So that's the question. The Pinot does so well, the Chardonnay does so well. Maybe Riesling. I haven't quite made that decision yet. I got to clear it first, and then I think it'll just kind of come to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a spectacular site, and I've had a lot of fun exploring with you today. All of your own vineyards. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
It's fantastic to be in charge of your own fruit.
It is, yeah. For the first 3 or 4 years, always having to buy from third-party farmers, and a lot of it wasn't organic sometimes, and it was just really hard to get the quality we wanted. And now having all our vineyards under our own control is definitely, I think, going to allow us to kind of take that next step.
The Dowells would be the first to admit that they have underestimated the amount of work and investment required to get even a small winery up and running, but they are undaunted. Moving one rock at a time is the perfect metaphor for what it takes to succeed, and the family is doing just that. In these challenging times, it's important to note that it's the little growers, the problem solvers, and the non-complaining that get the necessary work done. It is they who are the region's backbone of success, and it's they who will encourage the next generation to take over some 20 or 30 years from now.